What's up everyone? In what was arguably the most dramatic episode of the season so far, we saw the couples go to battle to get a rose, plus Jeremy's dirty secret was revealed. We've got so much to talk about, so welcome to your Bachelor in Paradise breakdown. The producers wasted absolutely zero time in starting to stir the pot. Hannah Brown and Wells arrived and told them that our gracious host Jesse wants to meet all the couples for a secret rendezvous. Basically, it was the producers' way of saying, welcome to this next episode, we're going to stir some shit a little bit so we can keep things interesting. They all arrived over to the beach and there was this big circle with so many doors in it. It almost looked like a set from Squid Game if you've watched that. And in each booth outside of the door, it was a sensory deprivation thing. In each booth you could put headphones on and it would completely block out everything else that's going on so you wouldn't have a clue of what's happening. But that was the point. One by one, the couples would answer questions, and if you matched with somebody else more than 5 times on your answers, after the game was over, you would then enter the circle together and have the opportunity to arrange a secret rendezvous. Now, because this week it was the women's turn to receive the rose, the couple who had the most matches and the most compatibility, the man would be safe and therefore automatically have a rose to give to the person he wanted to, and then the rest of the women would vote one of the men to not receive a rose. So the questions began and they were a little bit risque, some of them including what's the best time of day to have sex? What do you do to unwind? That one was really dirty. No, I'm joking, it's the other one that was. But seriously though folks, they answered all these questions and then we found out that the most compatible pair of every single one of them was Jonathan and Leah. This is two people who really, last week, they blew up on each other. Jonathan friend-zoned her. Leah said the "you're welcome" line when she gave the rose, and it was just so awkward between them. And then it turns out that they're the most compatible. So congratulations on Jonathan and Leah getting immunity for the week. Now, while several people in Paradise did end up getting matches with people that weren't in their couple, they met in the circle, but there was very little interest in actually taking it further and going to a secret rendezvous. I say that apart from one that stood out more than anything. Brian and Bayley found themselves in the circle together. And again, on face value, we looked at it and they didn't seem that into it. But this would be a plot line that would play out this episode. So put a pin in that one, folks. We're going to talk about it very shortly. We talked last week about how Captain Kim has had some heart issues and he had to get taken out and have a scan and all that kind of jazz done. He had another scan done again in this episode and he's being told that he needs to keep a heart monitor on him at all times. And he was like, this is good, this is fine, this is okay. But Faith, his partner, completely broke down and crying. It was actually very sweet to see. I don't know about everybody else, but I'm finding that these Goldens seem to have more of a real, raw, natural love than the younger folks. This is just some. I'm going to talk about just a point of view that has came to my mind that I want to talk about and kind of analyze a little bit. And I want this to be a point counterpoint thing. So the folks who are watching this right now, I want to hear what you guys have to say about this as well. I am finding that the older people are finding love easier or finding more raw and real and natural connections because I actually feel like it comes down to how much the fellas, the guys, can show humility. Because I feel like the older guys can poke a bit of fun at themselves and actually listen to what their partner wants to say. That's not to say all the young guys are not listening, but I am finding with a lot of the younger guys there's a lot of bravado and pretend humility and not actual humility. So as a result, when the partner comes to them with an issue, they kind of dismiss it in a way where they act like their partner's being overreactive or that they're there's so much psychology to this. This is where like the crossover with, because obviously a lot of you guys will know I cover Big Brother on a regular basis, and I of course analyze all sorts of stuff on there, from body language to the way people speak to one another, vocal expressions, all that kind of jazz. And I feel like this is even more prevalent in somewhere where you're watching people essentially trying to mate for life. It's a human version of a nature documentary in a weird way. And to me, these younger guys just don't have that humility. So as a result, it's harder for them to build a a strong connection with somebody. I know, I'm married. Let me just show my ring off for a second. And I know for a fact humility is such an important part. It allows you to of being in a relationship, because it actually allows you to grow. I'm a firm believer of when you've got that bravado, overconfidence that some of those young gentlemen have, it doesn't allow any room for growth, because it's automatically saying at this point, hey, I'm perfect and there's nothing you can do to change it, and there's nothing you can do to progress that. Whereas the older guys, I feel like they've seen a few summers, so they might have been like that when they were younger, but they've gotten to a point now where they've realized life's not all about that. Life's about finding a true, deep, meaningful connection with people, or maybe that's what you want to do with your life, and the way to do that is actually by being able to bear your emotions a bit more and show your partner that you're more than just confidence and bravado. Now, the main storyline of this episode was revolved around Brian and Bayley. This one had been on the slow burner for weeks on end. I will remind everybody that a few weeks ago, Jeremy did actually want to pick Susie at the rose ceremony. He picked Bayley, then Bayley was going on a date with somebody else, and he lost it and threw a man tantrum, and it wasn't pretty to see, because Jeremy had also been on another date, but Bayley didn't throw a man tantrum, so that was just... It was the hypocrisy of Jeremy through and through. But then we found out behind the scenes that he actually called Susie up while she was at the airport and asked if she would come back so that he could replace Bayley with Susie. And then not only that, he said that he would have proposed to her on the spot should she have came back. And Brian has been feeling like it's been weighing on his conscience. Either that or he wants to get into Bayley's pants, I'm not sure, because this is Brian and I don't trust him as far as I can throw him. And I can't throw him very far, probably because he's so slippery and sleazy that he would slip out of my hands before I could throw him. But yes, with Bayley, she of course is completely in the dark. And then all of a sudden, a letter arrives at her door. Brian has written a letter to her, and she opens it, and it reads, "I just want to talk," from Brian. So then Brian, he sat by himself in a little date area. He's drinking his champagne. It's getting late, and Bayley doesn't show up. She believes it's to meet up for a secret rendezvous for romantic purposes, but little did she know, it's absolutely not that. We cut back to her in her apartment, and she's with Parisa, who is Brian's partner, I may add. And she tells Parisa, "I received a letter." Parisa says, "Who's it from?" And she's like, "I can't say." And she goes, "Is it from Brian?" Bayley says, "I can't say, you'll find out afterwards." The paranoia is ramping up on Parisa. She's really, really panicking. I think she realizes at this point it's from Brian. Already we've got a classic miscommunication there, with people thinking that Brian's trying to hit on Bayley, both Parisa, his partner, and Bayley, who was with Jeremy, panicking, and things are starting to snowball out of control. Bayley tells Jeremy in the morning that she received a secret rendezvous letter. And then she casually drops to Jeremy, "I think we should vote out Brian next." And Jeremy goes, "Wait, was it Brian who sent you the letter?" And she turns around and kind of goes, "Uh-huh." And then he's actually surprised. He's shocked, because those two have been broscopes. They've been broskies for the entire time. Bros, we don't mess around each other. There's a bro code. So Jeremy was very upset about that. Parisa then confronted Brian about the letter, and then Brian finally was able to clarify things for the first time this episode, saying this was nothing to do with the secret rendezvous, and he explained the full situation of the Jeremy and Susie call to Parisa. And then, as a result of that, she actually cooled down and she felt like they were being brought closer together. Brian was avoiding eye contact the whole time, so I don't think to him it was closer. But Parisa was like, "I'm so glad this has brought us together even more." And I'm like, "Girl, you're stretching here." But yeah, he actually was able to confess and say, "This has been weighing on my mind and I need to tell Bayley about it." So Parisa was way more comfortable after that. Leah and Jonathan finally came together to have a conversation after last week. Things were very icy and cold at first, of course, with Jonathan friend-zoning Leah, and Leah feeling completely humiliated in front of everybody at the rose ceremony. That was a tough pill to swallow. I do feel sorry for Leah, because Jonathan, it's weird. I'm so conflicted with this guy because on a personal level, I'm like, he's funny sometimes, but then on other times, I'm just like, there's something off about this guy where I'm like, why is he sabotaging every single relationship he gets into? Why have you showed up to Bachelor in Paradise if you're just going to do this to every single girl that comes along, make her feel comfortable, and then just rip the rug out from under her? By any means, he's not as bad as Brian and Jeremy in the scale of asshole-itis, but that was a good one. But he's there's something off about this guy. I've already seen theories online of people saying that, he's trying to become the next Bachelor, which is why he's purposely not actually getting into love here and hopefully trying to drive up his popularity, so then the producers will go, let's put Jonathan on the next season of The Bachelor. I don't know what you guys think there, but they were finally sitting down, having a conversation, and this is where my big brother mind went off, because, of course, a lot of you guys know that I spend a lot of time talking about strategic stuff on Big Brother. That's my ballpark. I love it. And both of them decided they wanted to come together and put feelings aside and just try and win the money together. And I was like, oh, don't threaten me with a good time. Listen, I'm all for love, but I'm also all for gaming. And now that this game has turned into something where we're competing for money, that is where strategy comes in. And if I was there 100%, I'd be playing strategy. If it means I can get that money, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars. I want that. I want that money. And if it means you have to take out the most loving, compatible people, then you bet your ass I'm going to do that, because I want that money sitting in my bank account, not theirs. And the fact that Jonathan and Leah were able to put their feelings aside and come together for the sake of the game, Stockwatch just went up on those two. Love's young dream. Spencer and Jess were enjoying some time together and Spencer was talking about his childhood and how he used to go riding around on his bike with his when he was a little kid. They were reminiscing about the old days, kind of talking about maybe if they could provide that in the future to a certain little someone wandering around. Spencer and Jess seemed to be in it for the long haul. It was very, very sweet, very, very tender moment there. But then Bayley decided to crash their party. It is very sweet. It's like watching the old couple that everyone flocks to for advice, because they're so solid. And then Bayley showed up to talk to Spencer and Jess. Now, with Bayley obviously thinking that Brian was trying to secret rendezvous with her, she was spreading the incorrect narrative. She thought it was the correct narrative, but she was wrong. So then Brian steps in, and at this point, it's just like watching a tornado get closer and closer and closer, and we're like, oh God, should we evacuate? No, I don't want to evacuate. I want to sit on this seat and grab some popcorn so I can watch it. So Bayley and Brian sit down and talk for the first time, and Brian tells us in a confessional that actually the Susie situation has been an open secret in the house. And at that point I was shocked, because Bayley's got so many girlfriends in there that haven't told her. The likes of Alex knew, and Alex and Bayley are like that, and she hadn't said a word to her. A bunch of the guys knew, Dale knew. Of course, it was a bro thing. It was a bro thing that was apparently brought up, where all the guys know about it, but we don't say anything because of the bro code, and we're going to get onto that later, which is so douchey. So Brian's going back and forth, very hesitant on telling Bayley, and Bayley's like, I feel like I should know what's going on here. Just tell me. And Brian's rocking backwards and forwards saying, I don't know if it's helpful. And he was trying to do the right thing for the first time in this entire series. I feel like I saw a good side of Brian. I'm not going to lie though, because of his previous behaviours and actions of the previous weeks, it couldn't help cross my mind that he was doing this to try and get into Bayley's pants. I don't think that's the case. I think we actually saw some genuineness from Brian, because he really did actually look uncomfortable telling her. And so far to me, Brian hasn't done anything that I feel like has put himself outside of his comfort zone to benefit somebody else other than himself, right? And seeing him do that to Bayley, it actually felt like a different Brian. And I was like, do you know what? That was sweet. I will give him that, because he genuinely seemed to care about Bayley as a friend and wanted to make sure that she was okay. So eventually he ripped the band-aid off and told her the truth. He said, the night you got a rose, he was going to keep Susie. He told us he made the wrong decision. He called her at the airport and asked her to come back, but she said she was too emotional to come back. And during the bird dance challenge, he told me that if she had came back, he would have proposed to her right on the spot. And then the floodgates opened. Bayley was crying her eyes out, saying, why would he do this to me? She was in absolute disbelief, and Brian was hugging her and holding her on a friend level, I believe that was. I don't think that was a sleazy move from Brian. If it was, screw him. But it genuinely seemed like a raw moment from Brian where he actually cared about Bayley. Now, Bayley went back to her hotel room, but then she went to Jeremy's hotel room where he was sleeping. She woke him up, crying her eyes out, saying, Did you speak to Susie? Did you call Susie? And Jeremy was like, yeah. This douchebag, this absolute tool bag. I can't even think of any more words. I can think of more words, but I don't want to get demonetized. So she's asking him all this question, why would you do this? What's going on here? And he's like, I care about you, Bayley. What a douche. What an absolute douchebag. Anyways, he had to calm her down, all that kind of jazz, and then Bayley went off crying, and he just decided to go back to sleep. Point is, the guy's an asshole. And, you all should have seen my tweet last night. It perfectly summed up how I felt. I said something along the lines of this. I am going to craft the following carefully worded insult. Every single word that goes into this for Jeremy is meticulously chosen to demonstrate how I feel about the situation. You suck. Now, it wouldn't be a recap without talking about douchebag Dale doing something douchey. Yes, that is patent pending. I've put in the trademark for that one. Forget about deaded Dale. You are a douchebag, my friend. You are a deaded douchebag Dale. And he basically walked up to Brian, and it was an intimidation tactic for sure. It was like watching somebody in school or in the mafia, like the popular kids gang up on people who don't have as much clout or power in the social dynamics. And he was like, "Yeah, you didn't say anything, did you? You didn't say anything, did you? No, that's way out of line. If you said something, it's not in line with your integrity and your character to have told Bayley. Isn't integrity telling Bayley, not keeping it from Bayley?" That's the problem with these guys. They've got it backwards. The way they disrespect women, the way they talk about them as if they are day-old chowder, the way they try and hide things from them. They think that's what makes you a man and what makes it I feel like that's a massive problem just in general, you know? It's what makes you a man by, you know, being... That's not integrity. Integrity is telling the truth and actually being honest. Something Dale, I don't think, will ever be able to relate to in his life because he's that much of a douchebag. At this point, Bayley wants to go home. She wants to quit Paradise, and Alex went to try and comfort her. I was very disappointed in Alex. I've called her a gem week after week after week, but it turns out she'd been keeping the secret from Bayley. Like, what kind of a friend is that? I have no clue on earth, but she was still there to try and help her and try and dig her out of this hole and say, hey, talk her off the ledge. Don't go home. Don't go home. And then we finally see a bit of a Jeremy confessional. And he's trying to act the nice guy and saying, you know, if Bayley's going home, so am I. I only want to be here for Bayley. It was just like watching a narcissist operate. You know, I'm not throwing out any accusations here, but Jeremy does have some narcissistic tendencies for sure. That goes without saying. But this man, he just thinks he can talk to anybody in any kind of way he wants to. And then when he gets called out, he tries to act like the good guy and be like, no, I care about Bayley so much. Dude, you wanted to get rid of her and propose to somebody who was off the island, who was off Paradise. You liar. So he was saying all this stuff and trying to act like all bravado and saying all this stuff. All I was thinking the entire time is this dickhead is trying to save face, but buddy, you didn't even save a shoulder with that robotic display of empathy. Over the next few segments, Jeremy actually managed to talk Bayley down off the ledge and fully convince her that he is committed to her, that he has her back, that he's in it for her. And before you know it, they had their tongues down each other's throats again. I don't even... This is the first time during a Bachelor in Paradise breakdown where I'm just in absolute disbelief. Does this happen regularly, guys, in Bachelor Nation? Where a guy acts like a complete tool bag and then actually manages to convince the girl that he's not and then they continue fine and dandy like nothing's ever happened. It's actually uncomfortable to watch, like physically uncomfortable. Physically, mentally, emotionally, it's uncomfortable to watch. It's like you feel like screaming to someone that they're in danger with this person and that you're going to get your feelings hurt again and again and again. It's like watching Jaws, but everybody wants to get in the water rather than get out of the water. You know what I mean? But I also think that Bayley needs to give her head a shake. I feel so sorry for her, but since week 1 I've said this. I said that their relationship's going to blow up since week 1. I called that. But Bayley looks for the wrong thing in relationships. I said since week 1, she cares more about having somebody to put on her Instagram reels than an actual connection. And she's proven this time and time again. But also it's like she's fallen into the trap, so I can't really blame her. It takes two to tango. Jeremy's definitely the villain. He's the worst one here. But also, Bayley, wake up, girl. Get away from Jeremy. I had been warned about Kat in the very early stages of this show. In the comment section, I've had people coming to me saying, Tom, don't trust Kat. I've seen her on Bachelor before, Bachelorette, or whatever she was on. And you guys will have to remind me there. But she's not to be trusted, basically. And I saw that for the first time this week. I've never been fully sold on Kat. I feel like she has came across better because she's being put with Dale. And when you put somebody with somebody who's worse, it automatically makes them look better. But I think we saw a real glimpse of Kat last night. We saw somebody who is a little bit vindictive and a little bit of a witch hunter. She went out of her way to talk to Bayley, and she was trying to probe into Bayley, who told her about the Jeremy Susie situation. And Bayley didn't want to say it. She actually appreciated the fact that Brian had done that. And I feel like Kat was operating... It was like watching the popular kids in school. I hated it. It was so uncomfortable. Again, I watched it with my partner Sam last night, and both of us were just sat there going, this is awful. This is awful. And Kat was really probing Bayley, trying to figure out who it was. And she didn't want to give up Brian. So then the speculation started as a result, because there wasn't a solid name. So then everybody started talking, and it was awful. It became a witch hunt against Brian, and I never thought that I'd be here sitting defending Brian, but here we are, folks. Dale was trying to intimidate him. Jeremy was trying to intimidate him. There was all sorts of just kind of squaring up and coming up and saying, you know, that's not the... Even Andrew turned around and said, that's not the bro code to Brian to sell out like that. And then all of a sudden Bayley was convinced that Brian was a problem, and it was just, oh my God, it was just awful to see. It felt backwards. We were like in an alternate universe where the good thing to do was to keep the dirty secret from Bayley and not tell her the truth. And they were giving Brian such a hard time and ganging up on him and starting to talk about voting him out. Not strategically, like vindictively. It was on a personal level. And Dale and Kat, tell you what, folks, and I say this with gusto, and I want you all to pay attention to what I'm about to say right now. If you don't pay attention to any of my opinions all video long, pay attention to this one. They deserve each other. They're both vile, honestly. They're absolutely both vile. They are nasty, egotistical, vindictive people who were trying to turn the whole house against Brian for doing that there. Brian did the right thing. The one time he tried to do the right thing and he gets ganged up on by the entire paradise. It was awful. It was really, really awful. And Dale and Kat were the perpetrators. They were going around speaking to people, trying to turn the narrative against Brian, trying to get people to vote out Brian. It was just ugly to see. And I am really not a fan of Kat and Dale on a personal level. I mean, I haven't been a fan of Dale at all, but that cemented it even further. And also kind of showed up a bit of my dislike for Kat as well. That wasn't cool what they did. The back end of the episode was basically Brian getting ostracized from the group and people making him feel really crap about what he had done, which was awful because he did do the right thing there. He did for the first time in Paradise, and then he did that. He stepped out of line. Seriously, it was like watching the Mafia or the Popular Kids, you know, continuing to be a douche the whole time. Be a douche, be a douche. Do the right thing, and then all of a sudden the Popular Kids don't want anything to do with you. They gang up on you. It's fear tactics. It's fear mongering. That's why there's no actual genuine connections between some of these folks. That's why it goes back to what I said at the beginning. This is a full circle video. These old timers get along way better because there's actual real and raw connections, whereas these cool and popular kids only really care about what they look and what they're going to look like on Instagram and how many likes they're going to get. And then the connection isn't really there. Okay, you've got nice boobs. Okay, you've got a nice ass. Okay, you've got nice lips. Okay, let's smush and make a baby together and make a life together. It doesn't work like that. You've got to have a connection with them on a personal level, or otherwise it's going to spontaneously combust like it did last night when Brian stepped out of place. It's awful to see. Screw that mentality. And then on top of that, of course, with that herd mentality, all the young'uns started ganging up on the older folks. They wanted to vote an older person out. So at this point, the vote came down to one of the older people, or Brian. Classic high school. The ladies took turns heading into the voting booth, and they took turns voting Brian, Keith, and Captain Kim. It was the two old guys and Brian. Basically, the three people who didn't fit in anymore. And the one who received the most votes would not receive a rose and therefore would not be able to give one of the ladies a rose, meaning that the two of them would go home. Let's talk about the rose ceremony. Jonathan picked Leah, and it was a lot sweeter than last week, of course, because they'd reconciled and they've got their heads in the game. And then Jonathan was able to turn around and jokingly say, "You're welcome." Spencer, of course, picked Jess. Andrew picked Alex. Douchebag Dale sentenced Kat to a life of sadness and picked Kat. But also, I don't feel sorry for Dale because Kat sucks as well. Sean picked Alicia. In the most backwards moment of the episode, Jeremy, of course, had a rose, which is madness after all of this palaver, after all of this scummery from Jeremy, all this sleazeballness. He got a rose. And he picked Bayley, and they smooched in front of everybody. And I just felt like saying to Bayley, get some respect for yourself, girl. It came down to Kim, Keith, and Brian. The first gent to get a rose was Keith. Keith picked Kathy, and it came down to Captain Kim and Brian. The last rose of the evening was given to Brian. Brian was able to pick Parisa and stay in the game, and Captain Kim didn't have a rose to give to Faith, and they were booted. This was the most backwards episode of the season so far. It was uncomfortable to watch. I'm still enjoying this show a lot. Well, that was some backwards crap there. Watching Kim and Faith go home, who arguably have one of the best connections in the house, while all of these really shallow-minded and hive-minded young people just ganged up on the old folks, ganged up on Brian for trying to do the right thing. Uncomfortable to watch. And it doesn't seem like a nice group of people. That's all I've got to say for that one. You could see the looks on everybody's face, how distraught they were that they didn't have enough votes to get Brian. Kat looked annoyed, Dale looked annoyed. I feel like even Spencer and Jess jumped in, and that was so disappointing. It was really, really hard because I've really enjoyed those two, but again, I'm not fully sold because I feel like they just jumped on the bandwagon there, and it's so tough. If you're not going to vote Brian, you're going to vote out one of the oldies who've actually got a really good connection with one another. Well, do you know what? At least they're probably going to have a lot of money on their pension to head home and live it up large when they head out. It was teased that next week, 2 women will not receive a rose, meaning that there will be 4 people going home next week. It's really getting down to the wire. We're getting to the back end of the season, and I can't wait to see how things play out and see who manages to take the money. That's what I'm most excited about. To me, I've been so much more invested in this show since they turned around and put a strategic spin on it. I just wish they would actually focus on taking those threats out rather than actually just taking out the people who don't fit in because the popular kids decide they don't. Not cool if I was in there. I love Spencer and Jess, but guess who I would be targeting? Spencer and Jess. They've got arguably one of the strongest connections in there. Taking them out would be a good deal. That's game set match for me. I spend a lot of time analysing Big Brother, and I know to not let them get deep enough so that it's too late and then they walk away with the money. That's all we've got time for today, folks. I thoroughly hope you all enjoyed this Bachelor in Paradise breakdown. I always like to make sure that my shirt is corresponding of Paradise. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. I appreciate every single last one of you. If you want to join the postcard wall by sending me some mail, then make sure that you send something to the address on screen right now. I'm doing a mail opening video very soon, so if you want to send me something from your hometown or anything like that, folks, I would love to hear from you. But in the meantime, I hope that you're all staying safe, staying positive, and staying healthy out there. And remember to be kind to one another. Don't be like Jeremy. And I'm not going to say Brian this week because he actually was good and he was kind to someone. But in the meantime, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to all of that wonderful stuff. But until your next Bachelor in Paradise breakdown, I've been your host, Tom VASEY. Good night. And salute to Captain Kim.